Surprise, surprise! I decided to do a surprise episode because this subject I really could not wait a week to do, because originally the plan was I was going to do How High Wednesday, the mystery movie on Friday, and this episode next Wednesday. But I just realized that I really just could not wait to talk about it. I really didn't want to talk about it now. So the schedule is still on for this week. You're just going to get a bonus episode today. So Monday, Wednesday, and Friday we'll have new episodes. And this is just a temporary schedule for this week. Next week we'll go back to the Wednesday and Friday routine. But today I just wanted to talk about really one of my favorite band / artists of all time, and that's White Zombie / Rob Zombie. And it's really cool, and I really do like both White Zombie and Rob Zombie. But first I want to give a couple of shout outs. First of all, of course, we gotta get the shout out to Spanky and G, my best friends. They have a new podcast coming out tomorrow on a movie called About Schmidt, which is starring Jack Nicholson. I never saw that movie. I have heard of it, though. So I have a feeling that the podcast is going to be very good. I mean, it always is. Definitely check out their podcast because it's really great. Both of them have great chemistry. I honestly cannot say enough good things about that podcast. Definitely listen to it because those two are really awesome. And so now we go to Shoot the Shuffle. Oh, before we do that, Chucky's Playground is going to have a live stream of both Seed of Chucky and Curse of Chucky this Friday. And of course, I'll remind you all the time on Twitter and all that stuff. We have a Facebook page, we have a Twitter page, and I'll post the links to the description in the video as well as in the description. And we have a Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, we're all over social media. And so we're going to remind you of this, and it's going to be a really fun time. And you can go to Chucky's Playground to register, because remember, you have to be a contributing member of the website to join us. But registering is very easy. It only takes about 2 minutes. And definitely join us because we are going to have so much fun this Friday. So definitely be there. And now it's time for a little Shoot the Shuffle. And at number 1, Someday by Joan Jett and the Blackhearts, from Glorious Results of a Misspent Youth. Now this one is really cool. This album is a little pretty cool. Not necessarily memorable, but it has some really cool tracks on there, like cover of Cherry Bomb and New Orleans and stuff like that. And this was a really cool song on there. Number 2, Born of Fire by Slayer, from Seasons in the Abyss. Seasons in the Abyss is probably Slayer's best album, and this is a really classic song off there. Number 3, Catch Me If You Can by Alice Cooper, from Along Came a Spider. Along Came a Spider, I think, is a bit of an underrated album. This is from 2008, I believe, and this is a really cool song from there. Number 4, X-Ray Eyes by Kiss, from Dynasty. Not one of the more memorable songs off of Dynasty, but it's still pretty cool to listen to. Number 5, Lights Out by Lisa Marie Presley, from Whom It May Concern. I really like Lisa Marie Presley as a singer, and she's a really cool song. It's a cool artist, and her first album is very good. Definitely check it out. Number 6, Last Man on Earth by Alice Cooper, from Welcome to My Nightmare. Again, we approach Alice Cooper, and this one is a really cool song. Very odd in some ways. I don't know exactly what genre to put it under, but it's definitely interesting to listen to. Number 7, Honey Pie by the Beatles, from the White Album. A bit of an odd song because I believe it's less than a minute long, and it's only it's basically a very short song, but it's a really cool song as well. Number 8, Vicarious by Tool from 10,000 Days. While I don't think it's one of Tool's more memorable songs, it's still pretty cool. Number 9, To Whom It May Concern / Excuse Me by Lisa Marie Presley from To Whom It May Concern. This was back when they would put hidden tracks on albums, what with CDs and all that. Nowadays they don't do that anymore, but this one was really cool to listen to. Both of these are really good songs. Like I said, this album is very underrated, I think, and it's a really good album. And number 10, Space Oddity by David Bowie from Space Oddity. A really good classic rock song, and a really great story as well. So that's all for Shoot the Shuffle, and now it's time for the main event. We get to talk about White Zombie. And White Zombie's first album, it's not necessarily an album. They first did a few EPs, and their first EP was Gods on Voodoo Moon. And this one is pretty cool. I mean, there's songs like Gentleman Junkie and Tales from the Scarecrow Man. And Tales from the Scarecrow Man is really cool. And it's important to note that White Zombie, back in its infancy, was a very different band from the White Zombie that most people know. A lot of people know White Zombie as the La Sexorcisto, Astro Creep, industrial / groove metal band. But they were more of a noise rock band. And it really wasn't songs. It was just kind of noise. But still, when you do listen to it, you can kind of tell what they're going for. And overall, I think this is a really cool EP. That it really is just the beginning of White Zombie. And then the next EP is Pig Heaven. And this is really more of a single release than an EP, because it only has 2 songs on it. Pig Heaven and Slaughter the Grey. Both of which are very interesting songs. There's not a lot to them, but they're still pretty cool to listen to. There's not much to say about it. And now we have Psycho Head Blowout, which was their 3rd EP. And this one really isn't anything special. You know, it's really not that great. It's really just noise, basically. And there's not a whole lot of coherent songs on there. It's just kind of forgettable, you know. So, yeah, there's not much to say about that. And then finally we get a new LP, the first LP by White Zombie, and that's Soul Crusher. And one thing I should have mentioned before is that when you do listen to it, Rob Zombie's voice, well, back then he was known as Rob Stryker. Rob Zombie wouldn't come until La Sexorcisto, I believe. And the thing about Rob's voice on these first albums is that he sounds really different. Like, just, his voice is actually kind of high, you know. Like, he does still sound kind of like a teenager, but you can still hear kind of remnants and the inflections that would come to characterize his singing voice, you know. And I mean, it does make sense, because I think Rob was like 21 when he recorded Gods on Voodoo Moon. And, I mean, yeah, your voice is different when you're younger, and it does change when you get older. Like, I mean, come on. Like, did you always think I had this sexy voice? No. But I grew into it. It's the same thing with Rob Zombie. He didn't always have the He didn't always have that voice, but he grew into it, just like I grew into my own sexy voice. So, anyway, back to topic. Soul Crusher, really good LP. Ratmouth, Drowning the Colossus, Crow 3, some of the best songs on here. Again, it's really noisy, noise rock, but if you can get into it, then it's a really cool album to listen to. And so now we move on to the second LP, Make Them Die Slowly, in 1989. And this one is more mature than their previous ones, because this one, it really moves towards the White Zombie sound that we all know and love. It's more La Sexorcisto type sound, but it's very heavy. It could very well be kind of the heaviest thing they've done, maybe. I really don't know. But it's definitely very metal, and it's really good. One of the only things I don't like about this album is the fact that it has very poor production. And the previous albums didn't have the greatest production, but with the EPs you kind of expect that from the EPs. Soul Crusher had some relatively decent production. This one really just isn't that great production wise. Also, some songs go on for a little bit too long, and they start to become a little bit repetitive. Some songs go on for 6 minutes, and it's really not necessary. But I still enjoyed it. And Disaster Blaster and Demon Speed are really good songs. Murder World is a really great song. And one thing that I had just realized today, when I was listening to some White Zombie for today's episode, in Rob Zombie's upcoming film 31, which is in pre-production, in that movie, which I'm going to talk about near the end of it, there's the setting of the movie in which it's going to take place. The setting in that movie is called Murder World, and there's a track on Make Them Die Slowly called Murder World. And I'm not sure if that's just a coincidence or if that's an intentional mention, intentional reference. I'm really not sure. Maybe one of us can ask Rob on Twitter or something, or on the 31 website or something like that, if that's an intentional reference, because that's a really interesting thing that I just realized, and I'd like to think that's a reference to this one, but who knows? But that's something I found very interesting. But yeah, Make Them Die Slowly is a really good album. If you can get past the poor production values, it's a really good album. And so now we move on to the God of Thunder EP. And I believe that this was the last EP they did. And it consists of 3 songs. One is a cover of Kiss's God of Thunder, which is really good. Love Razor, which is an original. And Disaster Blaster 2, which is a re-recording of the song from Make Them Die Slowly. And this one is a really great EP. And this is more like the White Zombie we know and love. This was I think this was recorded with the La Sexorcisto lineup. So it's very close to that La Sexorcisto kind of sound. And it's a really good EP. And the thing about these early White Zombie things is that all of them can be found on a box set called Let Sleeping Corpses Lie. And it's a really good box set and consists of pretty much everything White Zombie ever did. From God's Own Voodoo Moon to Astro Creek 2000. And a couple of other songs that are kind of mixed around in there. It has all White Zombie songs, and it's really good. And if you can find it, definitely check it out. But God of Thunder EP is a really good album, a good EP. It's just really good. Definitely check it out. And so now we move on to maybe their most well-known album. And that's La Sexorcisto, Devil Music Volume 1. And this one is a really good album as well. In fact, it might be one of my favorite albums of all time. I really like this album. The first track, Welcome to Planet MFer, which is a really awesome title. You guys know what I mean when I say MFer, right? Of course you do. And it's also called Welcome to Planet MFer / Psychological Swag, because there's like two parts of the song. And it's a really cool album. It's a great intro, great introduction track. Pretty much lets you know exactly what album you're about to listen to. And the second track, Knuckle Duster Radio 1A, I think it's called. That's a really cool little thing as well. It's basically a bit of a segue between tracks, and it's basically what would happen. It's like a radio being tuned, and there's like all these samples from movies. There's samples from Faster Pussycat Kill, and Halloween, the original Halloween, and just stuff like that, you know. Then Thunder Kiss 65, and that's a really good song. Black Sunshine is great as well. Soul Crusher, the first half of the song is really good, really cool. The second half I'm not too fond of, but it's still really cool. Cosmic Monsters Incorporated, Spider Baby, I Am Legend, great song, underrated White Zombie song. It starts out with this really clean guitar intro that really creates a mood and an atmosphere unlike any other. You know, the intro to I Am Legend is probably one of the best intros to any song ever. And that's followed by Knuckle Duster Radio 2B. That's another segue. That's less than 30 seconds, actually. And we have One Big Crunch, which is, again, another segue. And it has the kind of, I'm not sure what it would be called. It has that kind of like Jack in the Box type music from Night of the Living Dead. I hope you know what I'm talking about. Just like that Jack in the Box type music. I'm really not sure what that's called, but and there's also, I can't remember what's in that segue. Oh yeah, Texas Chainsaw Massacre sample as well, and just really, really cool to listen to. And Warp Asylum is a great closer as well. You know, great 6-minute type thing. So, on the whole, Los Exorcisto Devil Music Volume 1 is a great album. If you haven't heard it, definitely check it out. It's one of my favorite albums of all time. A great album. And so, after this, they did a few songs for kind of soundtracks. They did a song called I Am Hell from for the Beavis and Butthead soundtrack back in '93, and that's a really good one. Then they did Feed the Gods from Airheads movie, and that's really good as well. And they did I'm Your Boogeyman for the Crow 2 soundtrack, I think, and that's a pretty cool cover as well. And so now we move on to the final White Zombie album, and that's Astro Creep 2000. And this one, again, really great album. I probably like Los Exorcisto better, but this one is really cool as well. I mean, songs like Electric Head, The Agony, and The Ecstasy. You know, there's two Electric Head songs. The first one is The Agony, which begins the album, and The Ecstasy, which is later on in the album. And I think The Ecstasy is better, but that's just me. It's a better song. I mean, don't take that the wrong way, perverts. But anyway, Real Solution Number 9 is really cool. It has a really cool vocal effect on it, and samples like the Manson family interviews, and also one of the verses in the album, on the song, one of the verses is "Who will survive and what will be left of them," and that's the tagline for the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So I thought that's really cool. And White Zombie, you know, of course, I think I mentioned this in previous episodes. They're basically a horror themed band, kind of like the Misfits in a way. They really refer to horror a lot, very horror themed. So, and Supercharged Heaven's very good as well. Great driving song. More Human Than Human, awesome song. Grease Paint and Monkey Brain starts out really cool with this kind of carnival music, and then it kind of goes to Minute as well, and it's really cool. iZombie is great as well. Blood, Milk, and Sky is also really good as well. So overall, Astral Creep 2000, really great album. And what a way for White Zombie to go out. And so now we move on to Rob Zombie's solo. And this is a really interesting thing, because there's always kind of a debate within fans. Who was better, White Zombie or Rob Zombie? And I'm really not sure about that, because I love both bands. But if you had to twist my arm, I would probably go with Rob Zombie solo, because I really like that stuff. And that's really the first zombie sound I heard. So I'm kind of attached to it, you know. And Rob Zombie's first solo album was Hellbilly Deluxe. And this one is my favorite album of all time. Every song on there is just really, really good. Very great. Very great intro. Call of the Zombie. This kind of creepy kind of poem. Super Beast. Dragula. Living Dead Girl. There's also a few instrumental segues on there. Perversion 99 is really great as well. How to Make a Monster, Demonoid Phenomenon, Spook Show Baby. Like, all of those songs are just amazing. They're great. I really can't say anything else about this album other than the fact that it's a great album. Practically a perfect album, really. It has great production values. And really, there's nothing more I can say about this album. The fact that it's great. If you haven't heard it, definitely check it out, because it is a great, great album. And I want to mention, before we move on to Sinister Urge, was that Rob Zombie does some remix albums every now and again. For Astral Creep 2096, I believe, they did Super Sexy Swingin' Sounds, which is which remixes a lot of the songs off Astral Creep 2000. And after Hellbilly Deluxe, he put out American Made Music to Strip By, which is basically remixes of songs off Hellbilly Deluxe. So that's just a really cool thing I wanted to mention, because it's a really cool concept. Now, I do like to hear the songs done differently. You know, it's just a really cool thing to do. And so now we move on to the Sinister Urge, and this is a really cool album. It comes very close to, almost comes close to topping Hellbilly Deluxe, but it never quite does. And really, it's the song Demon Speed that kind of keeps it down, because it's an okay song. It's really not that great. And this is a great follow-up to Hellbilly Deluxe. Very similar, but at the same time kind of doing something new with it. It's more about the band itself than the electronics. And I think it's a really cool album. Songs like Feel So Numb and Never Gonna Stop. That's just a really cool album. It's just a really cool album. Bring Her Down to Crippletown, Go to California, House of 1,000 Corpses, all of them are great songs and really great album, so definitely check it out. And I'll go ahead and talk about Rob Zombie's movies for a brief time, because you can't really talk about Rob Zombie without talking about his movies. And House of 1,000 Corpses, I will say this. I am probably the only person on planet Earth that actually likes this movie. Like, every time I go on the internet or something, I'll always see people like, I don't like this movie. Like, this movie was garbage. And I'm like, Okay, like I'm probably the only one that likes this album. And I'm sure there's a couple other people out there as well, but I really like this. I really like this movie. Just really cool. And yeah, I will give you this. It's basically a ripoff of The Hills Have Eyes and Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And I think it even takes place in Texas in the 70s. So it's like, yeah, I can understand that aspect of it. But I really liked it for what it was. Okay, and then after that we had The Devil's Rejects, which was basically a sequel to House of 1000 Corpses, but it could not have been any more different. Like, really, it could not have been more different. It had, like, really two different kind of movies, House of 1000 Corpses was a very visual kind of... It was basically a Rob Zombie music video, basically. An hour-long Rob Zombie music video was House of 1000 Corpses. Here, this is more of an actual horror movie. Basically kind of a road movie, and we come across these three vile people. Baby, Otis, and Captain Spaulding. And these three are really cool as well. And it kind of leaves you conflicted, because you want to kind of boo these guys. You don't want to see them live. You want to see them die. But at the same time, they're just so entertaining. And you spend the entire movie with them. And you can't help but like them. And it's just kind of a sick thing when you think about it. But yeah, Devil's Rejects is probably his best movie. And so yeah. And then we have his next album, Educated Horses. And while I like this album, I can't help but say that it's a bit of a step down from previous albums. It's more organic than his previous one, more grittier. Kind of has a Southern rock thing going for it. This was the first album that featured John 5 on guitar, and he does a great job as well. Let 'Em All Bleed Out is an okay song. American Witch is okay. 100 Ways is a really cool instrumental. Okay, I'm trying to think of something else. Sawdust in the Blood is a really good intro to the album. Okay, Lords of Salem, that's an okay song. Oh yeah, 17-Year Locust is really great as well. Other than that, it's really not that special. It's just kind of, this is kind of there, It's like, it's not that great. Most of it just seems to be really filler. So this was kind of a step down from previous ones. I like it, but, it's not a great album. It's an okay album at best. And so now I'll just go ahead and talk very briefly about the Halloween remakes. I've already discussed them, but I'll just mention them again very briefly. I like the two Halloween remakes. I think they're good for what they are. I don't think they hold a candle to the original, but as movies on their own merits, I do like them. Okay, so now I'll move on. I need to talk about El Super Beasto for a minute, because that's an album, a movie that a lot of people don't really talk about, mainly because it was direct to video, and it also came out the same year as Halloween 2, so it was kind of overshadowed by that. But I think this album is a movie. I don't know why I keep saying album, but movie. It's a really, really cool movie. It centers around this wrestler / movie star named El Super Beasto, and he has to stop Dr. Satan, and it's really cool. The one thing I was kind of confused by was that there's a Dr. Satan in this one, and there's a Dr. Satan in House of 1000 Corpses, and it always confused me because these two could not be more different from one another. This Dr. Satan is a bit on the silly side. He's very over the top. But the two are not related. They only share the same name. That's it. But this movie is really, really funny. and it's more of a comedy than a horror. While there is some over-the-top violence in there, for the most part, it's really a comedy. It's a really good movie. Definitely very interesting. And it's an animated movie as well, which offers even more possibilities. So, I mean, if you haven't seen it, definitely give it a watch, because it's a very interesting movie, and it's really, really funny. And so now we move on to Hellbilly Deluxe 2. And this one is pretty good. I like this better than Educated Horses. But I think they made a mistake calling it Hellbilly Deluxe 2, because it was really more Educated Horses 2. If there was a Hellbilly Deluxe 2, it was The Sinister Urge. But with that said, there are some really good songs on here. Jesus Frankenstein is a good opening track. Mars Needs Women is pretty good as well. What else? Okay, I'm trying to think what else was on there. Sick Bubblegum is great as well. What's great as well. Burner's a really good song as well. Cease to Exist is great as well. Werewolf Women, the SS. And The Man Who Laughs probably does go on for a bit longer than it needs to. Mainly because half the song is basically a drum solo. And it's not a great drum solo either. But for what it is, it's pretty good as well. So Hellbilly Deluxe 2, it's better than Educated Horses. And I do like the album. And so now we go to his movie, The Lords of Salem. And I'm just going to touch on this briefly because there's not a lot to talk about. This was really the first of Rob Zombie's movies that I didn't like. And I really wanted to like this movie because it was very weird and just kind of trippy. But it was just kind of boring. There really wasn't anything to it. And it's definitely more psychological, which I do respect. And it was almost like it was trying to be weird just for the sake of it being weird. So I'm not a huge fan of The Lords of Salem, but I can at least respect it because I can see what Rob Zombie was trying to go for. And as a movie itself, I don't necessarily like it, but I do have to respect it because it looks grand. And it was shot on a relatively low budget too. But what they did with that low budget, it was really great. And so it's a beautiful looking movie, but I just don't like it personally. But that's just me. And we move on to his latest album, Venomous Rat Regeneration Vendor. And this was a great album. Probably his best since Sinister Urge. Songs like Dead City Radio is great as well. Revolution. Theme for the Rat Vendor is great. A great instrumental as well. Ging Gang Gong Di Do Gong Di Laga Raga. Really great song as well. Rock and Roll in the Black Hole is a great techno kind of song as well. We're an American Band cover is great as well. The Girl Who Loved the Monsters is great as well. Just a really good album all in out. I really love this album. And so now I want to talk very briefly about his upcoming movie, 31. Because that's a really interesting album. A really interesting movie that's going to be coming out. And this one is going to be all crowdfunded. It's going to be basically kind of a Kickstarter kind of thing. It's going to be funded by fans. And that's a really interesting thing to do. And I'm assuming that he wants total creative control over it, which is why he's doing crowdfunding so that he doesn't need a studio. Because studio interference can be like really kind of annoying. And you can tell that's like two different visions. And I've always liked Rob Zombie's movie. And based on what this is going to be, I think it's going to be really cool and really fun. The plot takes place on Halloween. And it's going to be about these people who have to play a game called 31. And it lasts for 12 hours. And they're going to be hunted down by these clowns. And if they can survive for 12 hours, then they can escape from Murder World. And I'm really looking forward to this movie. I think it's going to be a great, great movie. I cannot wait to see it. It looks really cool. So, that's it for Rob Zombie. for this episode, White Zombie / Rob Zombie, and I think this is my longest. I think this is my longest episode to date because I'm looking at my phone and I'm reaching 35 minutes. That's probably my longest episode of the Metal Matt podcast to date. Like, that's really cool. So, final thoughts on White Zombie, Rob Zombie. I like early White Zombie, but when you really think about it, if you heard one early White Zombie song, you basically heard them all. There's really nothing different between them. They can sound really cool, but for the most part, they're all kind of the same. Later White Zombie, like Lost Exorcisto and Astro Creep 2000, are really good as well. And Rob Zombie's solo stuff are really great as well. And Rob Zombie's movies are great. They're violent. They can be darkly funny. Just really great. Rob Zombie is one of my favorite musical artists ever. White Zombie, a great band as well. So, yeah, that's it. So, yeah, that's it for this episode. And I'll see you this Wednesday for when I talk about How High. And I'll see you then.